So again, going with the whole idea of doing some teacher tips, I figured I'd go through a lesson. So right now, I work for an organization or a nonprofit that I created, and we do a lot with STEM or STEAM. And so one of the things we do is we do summer camps sometimes, and one of them that we did last summer was a VEX robotics camp. And so what I always do when I think about a lesson, I try to divide it up into an introductory lesson period of time, the meat of the lesson, and then the end and wrap up time. And so I'm a big constructivist model. I did a lot of science teaching for many, many years in private and public schools, in juvenile corrections, in urban, suburban, and rural districts, and in international schools overseas. And one of the big things is you have to get them to engage at first. And so I always start the lesson off with some type of engagement activity. Then we do some type of open explore or explain time. Then we go into, maybe a little bit more extension, and then we evaluate and we wrap things up. And that's when I really get a sense of what they got from the lesson, where I need to start the next lesson with, all that kind of stuff. I'm a big proponent of planning in PowerPoint because you're going to use that PowerPoint probably throughout the lesson. So it keeps everything in one spot, keeps you organized. I like to do just, a welcome slide or like a intro slide that you can put up just in between things. And then, so if you look in here, I always have my objective for the lesson. This is a course, so I always have the objective in there. So one of the things that a lot of administrators look for is that you have your objective, so make sure it's there. What students will be able to do. Students will learn the components of the VEX robot. Students will learn how to code. Students will create. So making sure that you're looking back at the actual indicator or standard, figuring out what in that lesson the students are going to learn to be able to do by the end of that lesson. And then I always make sure that I talk about the agenda for the class period. This is the agenda for the day. It was a day-long class during a week long of summer camp. So what we're going to do in the morning, what we're going to do after lunch, and all that kind of stuff. So kids have an idea of what that day is going to be structured, or what that lesson is going to be structured as. So it's always good to do. And one of the other things is, if you're in a classroom, I always put the times. So it gives me a reminder of how much time we're looking at for each one, and I can refer back to that throughout the lesson to keep myself on track. I love doing introductions with kids, especially if it's new, doing different ways that you can introduce each other. You can do this in a digital format. You can have them create the square and show it in Zoom or whatever learning platform you're using online. Have them get to know each other a little bit. This is a great way to take some notes, save these, and then you can do some, bingos later on throughout the year, where find someone whose favorite animal is this, so they can actually get to know each other better, even in a virtual environment. Always fun to do. So yes, there's all these things that you should do, but one of the key things is early on, set some type of basic rules. I like to do these basic ones of being prompt, being prepared, being polite, being patient, and being productive, the 5 Ps, because it really covers a lot. It sets up norms and things like that for the entire year and how we work together. And then we can talk about that. And one of the things I do throughout the year when I first start off is, what does it mean to be prompt? Let's describe what promptness is. Why should we be prompt? What does it mean when we're prompt? How does that respect others? How does that make sure we get things done? So we talk about those things throughout the year and throughout the lessons, and remind them. And when kids come in and they don't do one of these, have the other kids identify, or have the kids self-identify which P didn't they do, and explain that. And I always award them points based upon this, and then we do a whole point system for rewards. And so that's what we do. So really think about those things, and really touch base with those things throughout the year, and figure out how you're going to set up your classroom. One of the big things, if you have a content area that is assessed at the end of the year on a standardized test or something, making that warm up, either past released assessment items that you can show them throughout the year how to answer and how to respond to those assessment items, or creating your own that you can work with and help make sure that are aligned to the actual test, and making sure that kids get to see things ahead of time. So when it comes to that assessment, they're not taken by surprise by the formatting of those questions and things like that. So these are some tips that I've learned throughout the years that really help get kids engaged and keep your lesson flowing a little bit more.